A few days ago, Senator J.D. Vance posted a thread on X, formerly known as Twitter, defending the president's position on Iran. He claimed that many people are confused about Iran's nuclear program, and as an insider, he wanted to set the record straight. He argued that Iran is enriching uranium far beyond any peaceful purpose, that they have rejected reasonable agreements, and have been caught violating their obligations by the international nuclear watchdog. Vance's claim touched on one of the most volatile and complex issues in foreign policy. But in a sea of political talking points, what are the actual facts? So in this video, we are going to break down J.D. Vance's main argument and fact-check it against the available evidence. To understand any of this, we first need to talk about the Iran nuclear deal, officially known as the JCPOA. In 2015, Iran, the US, and several other world powers signed this landmark agreement. In exchange for the lifting of crippling economic sanctions, Iran agreed to severely limit its nuclear program. This meant it could only enrich uranium to about 3.7%, something like that, a level suitable for power plants, and it had to drastically reduce its stockpile. The goal was to extend Iran's breakout time. The time it would take to produce enough material for one bomb was extended to at least a year, giving the world time to react if Iran cheated. For a few years, the International Atomic Energy Agency repeatedly verified that Iran was complying with the deal. But then in 2018, the United States withdrew from the agreement, arguing it was a terrible deal and reimposed sanctions. For about a year, Iran continued to stick with the deal, hoping the others could salvage it. When that failed, Iran began to systematically break the limits set by the JCPOA. It started enriching uranium to higher and higher levels and building a larger stockpile. This is the crucial context for everything happening today. So, let's look at J.D. Vance's core claims. He essentially makes 4 key points. First, he says that having civilian nuclear power and uranium enrichment are 2 different things, and Iran could have one without the other. Second, he claims Iran rejected this path and instead chose to enrich uranium far above the level necessary for any civilian purpose. Third, he states that Iran has been found in violation of its obligations by the IAEA, which he points out is not a right-wing organization. And fourth, he suggests that there is no valid argument or justification for Iran's actions. So, are these claims accurate? Let's go through them one by one. First, is there a difference between civilian nuclear power and enrichment? Yes, absolutely. Vance is right about this. A country can run nuclear power plants without having its own domestic enrichment program. Many countries do this. They simply purchase enriched uranium fuel on the open market from a few countries that produce it, like Russia, France, and the US. In fact, even the United States imports about 95% of the uranium it uses in its power plants. So, the idea of Iran having nuclear energy without enrichment isn't just possible. It's actually common practice around the world. This leads to the second claim, that Iran rejected this path and is enriching uranium far beyond civilian needs. This is also largely true. For years, world powers have offered Iran full swap deals. A key example was in 2009, when the US and its partners offered to take Iran's low-enriched uranium and give them back fabricated fuel rods that could be used for medical research, but not for making a bomb. The deal ultimately fell apart after Iran changed its demands. And when it comes to the level of enrichment, the facts are clear. Civilian nuclear power requires uranium enriched to about 3 to 5%. According to the latest IAEA reports from May 2025, Iran is now enriching uranium up to 60% purity. For context, weapons-grade uranium is around 90%. While 60% isn't quite weapons-grade, experts consider it a dangerously close step, as the scientific leap from 60% to 90% is much smaller than the one from 5% to 60%. There is no credible large-scale civilian use for uranium enriched to this level. Third, what about the IAEA findings? Vance is correct again. The IAEA Board of Governors has repeatedly passed resolutions censuring Iran for non-compliance with its NPT Safeguards Agreement. This is separate from the JCPOA. The IAEA has found traces of man-made uranium at several undeclared sites in Iran, and Tehran has failed to provide credible explanations. They have also restricted access for inspectors. For its part, Iran claims that the IAEA reports are politically motivated and influenced by Western intelligence. Finally, Vance claims that there is not a single good argument for Iran's behavior. From a purely technical, non-biased standpoint, he has a point. But this is where the context we discussed earlier becomes critical. Iran's argument is fundamentally political. They argue that since the US broke the JCPOA first and reimposed sanctions, they are no longer bound by its restrictions. Their escalation in enrichment is seen as a way to create leverage, to force the West back to the negotiating table to get sanctions relief. So, while there is no civilian justification for 60% enrichment, Iran's political justification is a direct response to the US withdrawal from the 2015 deal. Omitting that context paints an incomplete picture. So to sum up, the core technical facts in J.D. Vance's statement are largely accurate. There is a clear distinction between civilian nuclear power and domestic enrichment. Iran has been offered diplomatic off-ramps in the past, which it did not take. It is enriching uranium to levels that are far beyond any peaceful justification and dangerously close to what's needed for a weapon. And the UN's own nuclear watchdog has indeed found Iran in violation of its international obligations. However, presenting these facts without the crucial context of the US withdrawal from the JCPOA in 2018 is a major omission. Iran's current aggressive nuclear posture is a direct consequence of that decision. While it doesn't excuse their actions, it does explain them. The situation isn't just about Iran's choice, but it's the sequence of actions and reactions from both sides that has brought us to these dangerous points. Okay, I hope this was informative. See you, and thank you for watching.